As Reconstruction and the settling of the West is happening, the United States is also going to be industrializing. Between 1865 and 1900, the United States goes from an agricultural society to the greatest industrial power in the world. Now, during this time period, we're going to see that industrialization is a mixed blessing. In fact, the area that occupies pretty much 1865 to 1900, for the most part, it's what's known as the Gilded Age. It is coined by Mark Twain, and the reason why it's called Gilded Age is because if you have to think of something that's gilded, something that is gilded is gold plated. And I have a wedding ring and I have a college ring, right? They're both gold. So if you were to take my, for example, my college ring, which is out of gold, and you were to cut it in half, you would see gold throughout the whole thing. It's solid gold. Whereas gilded is gold plated. So if, for example, you take a cell phone, right? You take a cell phone, and in fact, it's not gold plated, but this phone actually is. And I just realized it is the here we go. It is the, if you could see it, it is the gold colored iPhone. But does it mean I have a golden iPhone? No, it's not even gilded. Gilded would mean if it's gold plated. But if I were to take the phone, crack it in half, you would see circuitry inside. So it's pretty on the outside, but not as pretty on the inside. And that's what Mark Twain is making a reference to. And the United States is a gilded age during this time period. It looks great on the outside. Everything looks golden on the outside. But then you get into it, and you get inside it, it turns out not so golden on the inside. But nevertheless, the United States is going to go through a massive amount of industrialization. And the last half of the 19th century is a perfect period for the United States to industrialize. Mainly because of the fact you have to have 4 different things in order to industrialize: resources, labor, capital, technology, right? Resources, natural resources. In order to become an industrialized power, you need stuff like coal, iron, petroleum, oil, stuff like this, right? Raw resources. The United States was incredibly rich in natural resources. In fact, the United States is pretty much the Saudi Arabia of coal, right? So we had what it takes to be a industrial power from the natural resource side of the equation. What about labor? We have plenty of it. We're getting thousands of people a day coming over here, right? Mostly young people who are willing to do any job and get paid any amount, no matter how small it is, in order to make a living here in the United States. So thousands of people are coming over. That means thousands of potential laborers. So we have plenty of people. And in fact, to make a note, the last 20 or so years of the 19th century, people are increasingly coming from Eastern Europe, such as Poland, Austria, and Hungary. By 1910, for example, so many Poles had gotten all the way to Chicago that Chicago had the second highest Polish population in any city of the world. The third thing, capital, investment money. We are going to be able to get investments from British bankers. Before World War I, the British were basically the world's bankers. After World War I, the British are going to become one of the biggest, if not the biggest, debtor nation throughout the world, mainly because of the fact that they went all in for World War I. Finally, technology, number 4. Technology. The last half of the 19th century is a fantastic period when it comes to the development of technology. To give you an example, let's look at just patents alone. Between the presidencies, basically, of George Washington and all the way up to the beginning, 1860s, right before Abraham Lincoln becomes president, the United States Patent Office receives 36,000 patents, or at least petitions for patents, right? So basically, what's that? 70 years, 36,000 applications. Within 30 years, between 1860 and 1890, that number went up to 440,000 in those 30 years alone. So that kind of tells you the innovations that are coming about, the technology that's coming about. You take all of these 4 things and you are going to get an industrialized nation. Now, what's going to be the catalyst for industrialization? Well, that's going to be the construction of the railroads, and that's going to be the subject of our next lecture.